into a gentle Pilates class today. All you need is a mat and some kind of pillow. I just rolled up a sweatshirt, so that works, or you can grab a pillow from the couch, whatever you have, and just set it at the back of your mat, a little bit off to the side, and then come onto your knees. So I want shoulders over hips over knees, and I want you to take your hands onto the sides of your ribs. Now your thumbs are going to wrap around to your back, and I want your thumbs at the lowest ribs on your back, and then your fingers just wrap around the sides and the front. Now relax your shoulders. We're finding your deepest breath in through the nose, and then out through the mouth. Again, as you breathe in, you're filling the breath into your thumbs, into your fingers, and then as you exhale, your fingers slide closer together, your ribs start to slide towards your hips. So as you take that inhale, really fill the breath into your thumbs, your hands, and then audible exhale. Let's take 3 more. Your chest and belly are going to rise a little bit, but we want the lateral expansion, so into your side body, and then out through the mouth. So it takes some work to get used to breathing that way. One more time. Make sure you breathe in through your nose, and then out through the mouth. And then relax the arms down by your sides. Let's find a lateral flexion to the right. So start to side bend, reaching your right fingers towards your knee, and then exhale to come back through center. To the left, slide your left fingers down towards your knee, and then exhale to come back through center. Keep alternating sides, always protecting your low back. So you have a neutral pelvis. There should be no straining in the low back as you find your lateral flexion. We're just lifting up and over to the side, and then back through center. This is a great way to start class because it's starting to open up the lateral and spiral lines of the fascia, which help to lengthen your torso, helps to lengthen the spine, which then should make it easier to engage your deep core muscles. Let's take 2 more each side, maybe bending a little bit more. Core still moving with that breath. So we started with breathing into the side body, out through the mouth. Last one each side. And just one more. And then exhale, bring the shoulders over your hips and carefully come down to a sitting position towards the front of the mat. Your feet will be down, your knees will be bent. Reach the arms in front of you. Now notice if you naturally just like to be rounded and hunched here, sit as tall as you can, engaging the core, crown of the head to the ceiling. Now fingers keep reaching out as far as they can without pulling your shoulders with them. So you keep energy forward and then start to tilt your pelvis. So your belly starts to draw in, your feet stay flat, and this is so slow, so controlled. So challenge the range. How slow can you start to roll down? 1 bone at a time. Remember the reach with the arms. That will help you. If you ever need a modification, you can hold weights. That'll give more weight forward as you try to roll down where just your low back touches, and then your mid back, and then your upper back, relaxing your head down. Reach your arms out to the side walls, out to a T. So your palms can face up, and then bring your right leg into a tabletop position. So right knee stacked above the hip, and then exhale, lift your left leg up to tabletop as well. Try gluing your legs together so we're engaging the inner thighs. Now you don't want to overarch in your low back as we lifted the legs, so you might have to tuck your pelvis a little bit more. You want to feel really connected and braced through the center, through the abs. Now remember, the palms stay, or the arms stay reaching long, legs glued together. Start to drop your legs to the right. So both legs are glued together. You're slowly dropping over to the right while keeping your left shoulder down on the mat. And then exhale to come back up through center. Let's take it to the left. Drop both legs to the left. You can go about halfway down Or to advance it a little bit, you can go closer to the floor without your right shoulder lifting. Exhale to come back through center. Now we're slowly just switching sides. We are starting to engage the obliques. They have to work to lift the legs back up. But the goal is really to stabilize through your spine and make your hip flexors, your psoas, realize that it has to work to support the spine through rotation. So it's not just the abs. You're still gluing your legs together. You're totally relaxed through your neck, your shoulders. You're letting your head stay long. Remember, the range of motion in this twist is completely up to you. It can be small, but don't forget your breath that we started class with. Always the deepest inhale, open mouth exhale. Let's find one more each side. One more to the right. And then one more to the left. Exhale to lift back up and keep your legs in tabletop. So knees right over hips, heels about level with knees. Squeeze the legs together. Take your hands to your legs. So they're in contact with each other, but now I want you to press your knees to your hands and your hands to your knees at the same time. So really there's actually no movement of the knees. They do not pull closer to your chest, but you're keeping equal tension with the hands and the knees. So just by holding this, we are working through your transverse abdominals, the deepest layer of your abs. You're still breathing as you hold. You're still really pressing. Hands into knees and knees into hands. One more deep breath. Out through the mouth. Now keep the left hand and knee pressing into each other. Reach your right arm and right leg out long. I'm shaking. And then bring the right hand and knee towards each other again. Now right hand and knee press. It's the left arm and leg. Reach long. And then back to the start position. Keep switching sides. If you need to modify, you can go just to a diagonal. You do not have to go to a hover with arm and the leg. You can even keep them a little bit more to the ceiling if needed. The focus is that hand and knee that are pressing into each other. That's going to keep the transverse abdominals firing up. But take your time as you alternate. Again, as the arm and the leg reach overhead, there's no overarching in the low back. You're working to stay in a neutral pelvis. The reach of the arm and the leg should not change the abdominal engagement. They just have to work harder to keep the same distance between the low ribs and the hips. Keep pressing as you reach. We have one more each side. Press the left hand and knee, reach the right arm and leg. Press right hand and knee, reach the left arm and leg. Come back. Now you can continue doing that, or if you want to advance it a little bit more, press everything into each other, hands and knees, and then at the same time reach both arms back, kick both legs out, and then back in towards each other. They press, you find the tension. Remember your modification, you can reach a little bit higher to the ceiling if needed. The closer the arms and legs get to the floor, the more advanced this becomes. Let's try just two more to reach. Exhale, center. Last one to reach. Exhale, back to the start. Press again, just like we started. Glue your legs together. Press knees and hands into each other. One more deep breath in. Exhale out. And then set your feet back to the mat. Press your palms to the mat. And slide your heels as close as you can to your hips. So knees are over heels. Knees and feet hip distance apart. Press your palms to the mat to open up your chest. And then exhale. Tilt your pelvis. So try to find more of a flat back and then continue to tilt and lift your hips up to the ceiling. We're going to hold this shoulder bridge. So you're pressing your palms to the mat to open your chest. There's no overarching in your low back. If anything, you can tuck again a little bit more. Hips to ribs, ribs to hips. Engage your glutes. And then slowly lower down. One bone at a time. So your upper back touches. And then the mid back, low back, neutral pelvis. Let's do that again. We're going to add on. Tilt your pelvis. Lift your hips to the ceiling. Engage your glutes. Protect your low back. Press your palms to the mat. Make sure the neck is long. Looking up to the ceiling. Now, you can always stay here if this is enough. If you want to try, bring your right leg to tabletop. Keeping your hips level. So what you don't want to see is your right hip dropping. Hips are level. And then set your right foot down. Weight in the right. Now lift your left leg to 90. Hips are level. Set your left foot down. Let's try 2 more each side. Otherwise, you can just continue with that hip roll up and hip roll down. The neck stays long. Remember, it's that supporting glute that is working so hard. Obliques even as we lift the leg. You can really press into your hands to help get some support. 1 more. And then both feet down, knees and feet still parallel, hip distance. Slowly lower down 1 bone at a time. Back down to neutral. Good. Now turn onto your right side. You will want to use your small pillow here. So just set it at the back of the mat, and you are going to use it as a pillow just under your head. You're going to lie on your side. And your knees will be bent in a 90-degree angle. So knees just out of the hips, and they're stacked. And then both arms will reach long and they're stacked. Try not to let the bottom shoulder be way in front of the top, though. Even the shoulders will be stacked. Now your top arm will lift up to the ceiling. And then actually lift up, look, and then reach behind you. So a huge chest opener. It's really mobility for your upper back. The goal is to keep your hips stacked and facing the wall in front of you as you look behind you. And then lift the arm back up and down to your start position in front of your chest. Just 2 more times to lift the arm up. Your gaze is gonna follow the left fingertips as you reach up and then reach all the way back. So remember, the arm is reaching back, but your hips are still reaching forward. They're stacked, so you can get more twisting movement through the spine, and then lift back up and down to your start position. Last time. Lift the left arm up. Gaze follows the fingertips. Reach behind you. Open up through the front of the left shoulder. And then lift back up and lift all the way down. Now we are going to stay on your side, but your knees are going to drop down a little bit. So they're still bent and stacked, but knees about 45 degrees from your hips. And maybe the top hand comes to your hip. Bottom arm can just stay out here. Now, lift both heels off of the mat. Heels together, toes apart. Rotate your top kneecap up to the ceiling. So we're finding external rotation while squeezing the heels. And then lower your knee back down to a hover. Your top hand on your hip, you can tell if your hip is opening. That's what we want to avoid. If your hip is opening, we're not actually getting the top glute to work. So if anything, you can push your hip a little bit forward and then rotate the kneecap all the way up and lower back to a hover. Now your top hand should be able to slide under your bottom oblique to make sure you're staying active in the side body. Let's find 2 more to rotate your kneecap up and back while squeezing your heels. Lower the knee to a hover. Even here, we're keeping our front ribs reaching towards our back ribs, so we're not overarching in our low back. And on the last one, I want your kneecap up. Hold, squeeze your heels. Tiny pulses of your knee up and back. It's so small, so subtle, but it's for your top outer glute. Hips are stacked, chest is open. Last 3. Pulse for 2. And on the last one, you'll lower the knee all the way down. Lower both feet down. So lift your top knee and your top ankle level with your top hip. Now draw circles. You're keeping the knee bent, but just draw really big circles with the knee. So it's like there's a pencil on the top knee, and you can see the circles that you're tracing on the wall in front of you. And as you're drawing these circles, we're still actively lifting the bottom oblique. You should still be able to slide your hand under the side body. Your hips are stacked. They're not rolling forward and back as you draw the circles. They're stabilized. Your neck just stays long, relaxed. Let's now reverse, opposite direction, but just as big. Just trying to get some movement through the hip, and some strengthening in the muscles around the hip and the glute. We'll find one more full circle. And then you can relax the knee on the bottom knee. Now find some internal rotation. So keep your knees glued together, but lift your top foot up to the ceiling. So you should feel your thigh bone rotate towards the mat. And then externally rotate by tapping your toes together and rotating the top knee up towards the ceiling. So we internally rotate, we twist from the hip socket, and then we externally rotate, open the knee towards the ceiling. Yeah, 3 more each way. So find that internal rotation, tap the knees, toes should be pointing up, and then externally rotating. Again, this is all about just movement through the hip. For 2, relax in the upper body. So lifting the bottom oblique. 1 more to rotate, tap the knees. And then rotate the knee up, tap the toes. And then I lied, we're gonna do 1 more internal rotation. We're adding on those. So your knees can stay glued together to make sure your toes are up. Now the top knee will actually tap the floor in front of the bottom knee and then kick your leg up and back behind you. So you're kicking back at a diagonal. And hold this first one. You don't want to kick because you're overarching in your back. So can you slide your ribs together, your brace through your abs, and then bend the knee and tap it to the floor. So kick from your glute, that is your goal, but nothing else can change from your hips up to make sure your glute does the work. And then bend and tap. Yes, 3 more to kick the legs straight and back, and then bend. So to fully get the leg straight, you have to engage your quad, the front of the leg. You're pulling your kneecap towards your hip. 2 more to kick. Are you still breathing? Remember that breath we started class with? Inhale through the nose and then exhale. Kick and hold. So your leg is straight and then pulse it up. It's gonna be small. It should not be big. Small pulse up and back. You're still lifting the bottom oblique, stacking the hips. Your leg is back at a diagonal. We're trying to lift higher than the hip as we pulse for 5, 4, breathe, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. Bend and relax the legs down. Okay, we're gonna get rid of the pillow. Maybe slide it towards the other end of the mat where we will use it next. And come onto your right forearm. So now we are going to challenge the right shoulder girdle a little bit more and the right oblique. Your knees will stay bent here, and your top hand comes to your hip. Now just lift your hips up and hold. So you lift your hips up. So now again, we're not sinking here. We're not putting extra pressure on the shoulder. We're trying to lift out of it. And hips are stacked. Don't let them roll back behind you. And then just drop your hips back down to the mat. Again, I want you to lift your hips up off of the mat. Lift the hips, they're stacked. Strong shoulder, strong oblique. And then lower back down. Just 1 more. Last time, you'll lift up. Hold. Top leg will go straight. Toes are still on the mat. We're strong in our shoulder. Lift your leg up. Yes, I know we're back into that outer glute, outer thigh work. Breathing. Keep your neck long, so try not to drop your chin towards your chest. Reach longer through the crown of the head. 3 more to lift. Last 2. Just 1 more to lift. And then bend your knees, so your knees are stacked. And slowly lower your hips down. Awesome. Now swing yourself around to the other side of the mat. Before we lie on your side, I want you to come down to your forearms. Make sure on this one that you're spreading your fingers apart. Your wrists are right on top of the elbows under shoulders, and send your knees back behind you. So you are going to be in a kneeling forearm plank. Now before we add on, let's get really active here, like you're trying to rip the mat apart. So you're trying to pull your fingers, your forearms away from each other. You're trying to rip the mat to engage your serratus muscle. It's really challenging to keep that ripping motion as you breathe. You can stay here. if it's enough, or curl your toes onto the mat. Don't change anything except lifting your knees up into this full forearm plank. Make sure your neck is long. Look down between your forearms. You're still ripping the mat apart. Let's take one more full breath in. Exhale out. Drop your knees if they're lifted, and then carefully come onto your left side. So grab that pillow, hopefully it's close by, and you're gonna lie all the way down on your side. We start with the knees bent in 90 here. So your shoulders are stacked, your hips are stacked, and your knees are stacked. Reach your top arm long, and then as you exhale, lift the arm to the ceiling. Gaze follows the fingertips as you reach behind you, stretching front of the shoulder, getting mobility through the back. And then lift up to the ceiling and back down in front of the chest. Just two more. Lifting the arm up. Gaze follows as you reach behind you. Reach a little bit longer. Lift back up to the ceiling and down in front of the chest. One more time. Keep lifting the bottom oblique. Last one, last spine twist. Reach as long as you can. Lift up, down, and then top hand to your top hip. Slide your knees down a little bit so they're about 45 from the hips. Lift your bottom oblique. Make sure you're comfortable here. We're going into our clams. So both heels lift. Squeeze your heels together. Flex at your ankles. Rotate your top kneecap up to the ceiling. And then lower the knee down to a hover. So really squeeze your heels. Rotate the kneecap up and back. And lower down. Now, once you get the coordination, the movement down, you can take it really slow and focused on with your breath. Are you breathing deeply and through your nose, in through your nose, out through your mouth? And then your hips, they're slightly forward towards the screen. They're never rolling to the wall behind you. Keeping your chest open, your neck long. Let's try 3 more to rotate all the way up and back. Squeeze your heels so we get extra work even for the bottom glute. 2 more. And on the last one, you'll hold. Kneecap up and back. You'll stay here. Pulse the knee. It's super small. Very controlled from your glute. Are you lifting the oblique, finding more length on the top side body? More space between your right hip and right shoulder. Pulse for just another 3. Up and back for 2. 1 more to pulse back. Lower the top knee down. Lower the feet all the way down. Now, top, knee, and foot lift level with the hip. Let's go into circles. Big circles here. Remember, it's still about the hips stabilized as you move the knee. You might be drawing much smaller circles, and we'll work up to the bigger range of motion. Of course, still breathing. Think about your pelvis again. Is it neutral, or did you start to overarch in the low back? Let's reverse the circle, opposite direction. And if you ever feel that you're cracking every time you're moving your hip, try to go maybe a little bit smaller, and usually that comes from losing stability through the pelvis. So focus on, again, bracing through the abs as you find your deep breaths. 2 more. 1 more full circle, and then relax the top leg to the bottom leg. Now lift your top foot, so find internal rotation, really rotating, twisting your top thigh towards the mat. And then external rotation, tap your toes, top knee rotates to the ceiling. So internally rotating, you tap your knees, your top foot lifts as high as it can, and then toes tap, knee lifts. Let's take 4 more. So good to be able to move internally and externally through the hip. 3 more. you lifting your bottom oblique the whole time. You're not relaxing it down. Trying to stay active. 2 more. Tap the knees, tap the toes, and last one. Now we do end with the knees together. Tap, toes, foot up to the ceiling. Now, tap your right knee to the mat and then kick the leg up and back. Hold this first one to make sure you're not kicking from your low back. Slide your front ribs to your back ribs. Leg all the way straight. Try to slide your kneecap towards your hip and then bend, tap your knee to the floor. Kick the leg straight back at a diagonal behind you and then bend and tap. So we kick back and tap. Remember, it's your glute max that we're trying to engage to kick back. The glute max is the biggest hip extensor, so we're actually opening up through the hip, working the glute as you kick the leg. No momentum. Let's try 3 more. If you do feel your low back, maybe don't kick quite as far back. It's okay if it's just slightly past your hip. And on the last one, you will hold. So kick back as far as you're still protecting your back, engaged in your abs, straight leg, and then pulse up. It's so small, the pulses. Nothing else should change. So you're not sinking into your bottom oblique to lift it. You're lifting there. You're actually lifting from your glute max and medius. Point through the toes. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bend the knee, relax it down. Now we can just set the pillow off to the side a little bit. And we'll come onto your left forearm. Left forearm, shoulder over elbow, knees stay bent, top hand on your hips. Now a strong shoulder girdle oblique as you lift your hips up to your modified side plank. Just want you to hold this first one. Make sure the hips did not roll too far forward or back. And then slowly lower the hips back down. 2 more to lift the hips. Hips are stacked. Think about the crown of the head, not up to the ceiling, because then you're not going to be able to activate the obliques as much. Crown of the head all the way to the side wall. So the neck is long, in line with the spine, lower down. You just have 1 more. Exhale, lift. Keep the hips stacked. Top leg reaches long. Can you lift the top leg hip height and then tap the toes down? Lift and tap. Chest stays open. Front ribs slide to the back ribs. Strong abs, glutes. This bottom glute leg is still working. You have 2 more. Last one to lift, set down, bend the knees so the knees are stacked, and then control your hips down. Now 1 more of those forearm planks. So I want you to come back onto your forearms. You want to spread your fingers apart, so try not to have the fists together. It just works your back muscles differently. But I like when we get the serratus more involved. So spread your fingers apart, slide your knees back. You're trying to rip the mat apart. It is so much work even from your knees, so definitely stay here and focus on your breath, your long neck. We don't ever want to be sinking here. We're lifting our chest, lifting our belly away from the mat, ripping the mat apart, and reaching long through the crown of the head. Now just if you want the option, curl your toes, lift your knees, hold this full forearm plank. We have to stay strong through the center, ripping the mat apart strong through our serratus to stabilize our shoulder blades. For 3, breathing, 2, gently drop the knees down and then lift up to all 4s. We are going to do just 1 thing on your wrist. So spreading your fingers apart, knees under the hips. Neck stays long. Start by reaching the right arm and left leg long. Yes, now we want to keep the balance. If that's ever too much, you can just do the legs or you can just do the arms. But we try to do opposite arm and leg. And then set it down. Other side. Reach the left arm, kick the right leg. Now we don't want anything to happen when we do that. We don't want any twisting or rotating through the hips or shoulders. So that's where we have to stabilize through the core before we reach. And then set it down. Just 2 more each side. Reach the right arm, left leg. And then set the hands and the knee down. Stabilize through the core, and then you can move. And set down. Last on each side. Are you still breathing into your back ribs and side ribs? And then exhale as you reach. down. Last one. Reach. And then set it all the way down. I just want you to lie on your stomach here because we want to get some back extensor work. We got to move your spine in all directions. Arms are going to reach out to a T. Forehead can be completely relaxed. That's uncomfortable. Of course, you can just start with one cheek down. Your legs will be about mat distance apart to help protect your back. Tops of the feet stay pushing into the floor. So when we push the tops of the feet down, your knees will most likely lift off of the floor because we're active in our hamstrings and our quads. So inhale to prepare. Exhale to lift just your chest, your arms, and your head. Tops of the feet are still down. Now if you lifted too high and you're just worried about lifting so high that you're in your low back, focus on just a little hover and tuck your pelvis. So slide your ribs together, lift your belly away from the mat and reach through the crown of the head. Neck stays long, arms reach longer. Tops of the feet are still down. Pretend like there's an ice cube under your belly button. You're trying to keep the belly lifted away from the mat so you're not just relaxed down. We're engaged. And then relax everything back down. Again, inhale to prepare. Exhale to lift, upper body to a hover. Keep the tops of the feet down, arms at a T. Focus on the length again. And this time slide your arms towards your hips. Really squeeze them together. Tops of the feet are still down. As your arms come to your hips, you might be able to lift your chest just another inch or so. And hover the chest. Reach your arms to a T. And relax back down. One more like that. Lift upper body to a hover, just to a hover. Worry more about the length than the height. And then squeeze your arms, lift the chest another inch if you can. Neck is long, you're looking at your mat. Open your arms to a T and relax everything down. Good, now this time, arms are gonna reach overhead. We're gonna do a full Superman. So inhale to prepare. Exhale, lift your feet this time, lift your chest, lift your arms. Again, start super small, just a hover. You're reaching as long as you can, like you're being pulled from your toes and from your fingers. And then try to lift 1 inch higher and hold here. Focus on the breath we started class with. Breathe into the side ribs, the back ribs. Out through the mouth. 2 more full breaths. Remember, it's just a little hover. Focus on the reach. 1 more full breath in. Full breath out. And then relax everything down. Okay, carefully come up to a seated position. And you can sit crossing your legs. If you are not able to cross your legs like this, you might have to grab your pillow. You can always prop yourself up a little bit and it should be easier to cross the legs. So whatever is most comfortable. We're just gonna get a little bit more movement through your spine. This is all stretching though. So your hands are gonna be on your knees. We're gonna do cat-cow from a sitting position to stay off of your wrist. Start by nodding the chin to your chest and rounding in your upper back. So we're flexing through your back. Just hold. I want you to take 2 full breaths here. Your head is so heavy. You're breathing into your side body and back. Exhale out through the mouth. Let's take 1 more breath in. Exhale out. Now start by opening up your chest, your abs to the wall in front of you. Push your hands into your knees and lift your gaze up a little bit. So now we're in extension. You're gonna find that same breath. 2 breaths in, 2 breaths out. Keep pushing your hands into your knees. And then nodding the chin, rounding in your back. Just find that full flexion. And then move right into the extension. Try to find articulation though from the tailbone all the way up through the crown of the head. Push the hands to the knees to get more opening through the chest. 1 more each way. Nodding the chin, rounding in your back, drawing the belly button towards the spine. And then opening the hips forward, the abs, the chest looking up. And then come back to just a neutral spine. Your right hand can go down by the side. Reach your left arm up and over, finding a side bend. Think about the ribs rotating, revolving more up towards the ceiling. Take one more full breath into your left lung. Exhale out. And then lift up through center. Last thing, left hand down. Reach the right arm up and over. I like to try and open the ribs more to the ceiling so your gaze even goes up. Bending your left elbow as much as you can. You might be able to drop your forearm down. Otherwise, wherever you can hold. Take one more breath into the right lung and ribs. Exhale out. Come back up through center. And that's it for this gentle Pilates class. I hope you enjoyed.